Hey. Welcome back. Another episode. Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here. My good friend Kara. What's up? How are you
What
doing?
day is it? What day is it?
It's it's Wednesday. It's hump day.
It's your favorite day.
We were joking that it's wet t-shirt Wednesday earlier, but I figured that's probably, I mean, we're both wearing black, so it wouldn't be that funny anyways.
Yeah,
Someday.
that's true. Just be disappointed.
Someday.
Yeah, maybe when you're more jacked.
Maybe.
I'm throwing this on you. Obviously, you're the problem here, not me.
Or when I get smaller clothes. Whichever comes first.
Now start sending JD small merch.
Yeah. Small instead of medium. And I'll just probably rip it. So then I'll just look huge. Anyways, okay, we got lots to talk about today.
Wednesdays are supposed to be degen news days.
Degen
but there's
day.
like no degen news because of the friggin' SEC and the interest rates and all of that stuff. So whatever, we're doing our best here.
But we're talking about Uniswap. That's kind of degen-y.
We will talk
DeFi,
about Uniswap.
Crypto. Yeah, what else we got?
A little bit of Binance, a little bit of FinBlocks, and then we've got a great segue where Ava Labs is going to move us into the SEC, and then we will have to talk about the SEC. Otherwise, I think you might cry yourself to sleep tonight.
Yeah, I'd be really disappointed if we went a day without talking about the SEC. Awesome. Okay, quick shout out to SBF. I mean, to Empire Wallet. SBF owes me nothing. Own your assets.
Wait, do you always wear your Empire Wallet shirts in a row?
No, I said yesterday on the show that I was going to wear the SBF one today. This is like,
I know. Last time you also wore them in a row.
They're just in that order, maybe in my closet.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I love it.
I like this one though. I think it's cheeky.
It is funny. I was going to wear my Kyber Swap t-shirt today that I got several years ago at Avalanche Barcelona, a year and a half ago at Avalanche Barcelona.
A year and a half.
A year and a half. Yeah. It's a fine t-shirt, but you know what Kyber did is they had socks. And those socks are amazing. They are in my regular sock rotation.
Hey, are you old enough to remember the uni socks?
The what?
Obviously not.
The uni socks?
Yeah, Uniswap did this thing where I think it was 100 pairs of socks. This is a while ago. This is like in 2019 or something, 2018.
Okay.
And if you redeemed your token, you had a token or an NFT that entitled you to a pair of socks. Then you could burn the token and get the pair of socks. But every time a token was burned, the market cap went bananas. And so the last pair of socks was worth a lot. And so funny story, I seen the ultimate flex. I saw a guy in New York City walking around with the Uniswap socks.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, a lot of people just got the socks early on and whatever. But then once you got,
you would have to like hand wash them so you didn't actually lose one in the
wash. The socks always disappear. I feel like they escape. They like run away to new feet. They're trying to find a new life. You know, the grass is.
Yeah, that's fair. As long as they are committed to changing their lives.
All right. So we did the merch shout out. We did the. What we're talking about. Wait. One last thing. It is we're here Monday to Friday. It's a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 Eastern.
You can tell it's live. Otherwise, all of this would be edited out.
You can tell it's live because we say a lot of nonsense that actually makes it to production. Anyways, let's fucking go. We're back. Okay. We're live on Twitter Spaces. Oh man, it's so nice to have Mr. Producer back.
It actually really is.
So life is so much easier when we don't have to set this stuff up. Anyways,
I was not good at it. Let's just be clear. This is totally on me.
We've got lots to talk about today.
All right.
Lots of exciting stuff. Yeah, let's do it.
We're going for it. Uniswap V4 has launched. Do you care about this? Do you love it?
I do. I think it's important. I mean, we can talk a lot about the specific features and stuff, but essentially, they're making it so that you have more flexibility and control over how your funds are handled. They've significantly increased composability and how you can build Uniswap directly into your applications. And they've made a lot of infrastructure to make like limit orders and many things to resemble centralized trading experiences on Uniswap. And this is, I think,
which makes sense because they're the largest DEX in the world by volume. So in a way, they're almost a centralized exchange.
Well, and what we've seen is a lot of volumes have moved on chain, right?
Absolutely.
Because all this nonsense, which we'll talk about later. But it's also really timely. I mean, when the Uniswap v3 license expired and became open source, obviously a lot of people quickly cloned v3, and I suspect this is what we'll see out of Uniswap going forward, which is smart. It's a good way for them to innovate in a very controlled and predictable manner, where they have effectively a 1 year lock on the license for their tech. Then they release it after a year, and by then they should have another version. So now the rest of the space is caught up to Uniswap v3, which was a year ago, and now Uniswap's coming out with v4. So I think it's a pretty
to be a market leader. Hey, you're like, okay, plebes, take my tech in about a year.
Yeah.
You can have it. It did say in a couple of articles I read, it said that the source code has already been shared, at least with their dev community, to garner feedback. I don't know if that comes with an NDA or whatever, but I also kind of like the idea of accelerating the catch up this time.
So even if the code is available to the public, what is prevented is people copying it, right? And it's enforceable, quite enforceable, actually. The way that the licenses are for technology IP. So anyways, I think this is great. Like, this is exciting. I like to see Uniswap innovate. Obviously, Uniswap is like one of the only DeFi protocols that is meaningfully profitable without giving away a ton of tokens or doing anything. They also have a fairly efficient governance structure. Depends who you ask. I mean, it's heavily weighted towards venture capital partners and giant whales, but it's a really good case study in scaling DeFi. Obviously, they were early with a very novel concept, so we all can't copy that playbook. But they've done a lot of really interesting things that I think is useful to look at as examples. And they've really been a pioneer of a lot of areas of the space. Again, the way that they did their token launch, the way that they defended against vampire attacks without using emissions, like all of these things, the way they innovate, I think it's amazing. So for us degens, this is really exciting. I think it's an exciting new technology. I wish they did more to prevent MEV, which they don't. But I mean, again, something like 70% of volumes on Uniswap is actually MEV.
No way.
Yeah, something crazy.
That's wild.
I'm advising another project that is building swap platforms that preclude MEV, and that's one of the stats that they gathered from on-chain. So it's pretty crazy that so much of the volume is done in a way that's a detriment generally to most participants. So we'll see how that evolves over time. I think regulation will prevent that. That's a huge unfair advantage, and regulators, I think, will snuff that out pretty quick because the only loser there is the small retail consumer, generally speaking, or large institutions that don't know what they're doing. But if you're trading big volumes, you better understand MEV. Otherwise, you're getting screwed. But all of this to say, it's exciting. I mean, they take a few meaningful steps every year. It's kind of like the Apple iPhone, right?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, so the thing that I actually am really stoked about is all of the customization that they have. They're introducing new logic pools. We've seen that in other like dApps and tools before, but as the market was up, a lot of these really customizable DEXs sold out, right? And then as the fair hit, a lot of them failed. And so a lot of the DEXs that are available are like really standardized, and you don't get to build them into something that you want to use yourself. It's really just the swaps. So I'm kind of about the customizability. I'm hoping to go play with that. When? I don't know. At 2 a.m. Like
someday when we have time, which seems to be never. But yeah, that's exciting. And then we were talking a little bit about and following this FinBlocks thing. So maybe we can get into that. This is also pretty interesting. This is something that I think has been talked about a lot and has been done very poorly. So if people remember Alameda and 3 Arrows, that was one of their big product offerings, was treasury management for these protocols. The problem is if they misappropriate funds, then all of those platforms lose their treasuries, which is actually almost exactly what happened. Market making assets plus whatever raised funds or protocol revenue they have living in the treasury, a lot of times they would hand it off to these market makers or strategy providers. Anyways, Finblocks is doing something pretty interesting. I think Open Eden is the platform. So I think it's creating a unique on-chain or more on-chain structure so that there's a lot more transparency built in and a lot more programmatic kind of code so that it's not so discretionary. I think this is really exciting. I mean, you can get treasury yields on assets. So this is like US treasuries. That's not what Three Arrows was doing. But my point is, when you have a lot of these centralized people managing asset pools, you end up with weird discretionary decisions. In this particular case, this is very similar. Who was the other one that's doing US treasuries? I can't remember now. There's another one that's doing US treasuries also. I'll think of it as soon as we get off the call, I'm sure. But it's interesting. I think it's something that will start to build. I talk a lot about liquid staking assets and how they will form base yield for many other financial products to be built on. Treasuries are another way. It's a way to kind of bake in some guaranteed base yield, and then from there you can use those products as, you know, composable pieces of more sophisticated financial products with different risk profiles, et cetera. So I think this is pretty interesting. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I like that we're seeing diversification, right? I think that we're going to see more and more of our traditional finance components coming into DeFi. It's exciting, but that is also why we now call it blockchain finance, because there's going to be some very blurry lines with Chainlink and Swift and whatever the heck Ripple's going to do with all of their CBDCs and with every type of TradFi asset being mirrored on chain. It's cool, but I don't know if it's exciting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, to me, this is just the natural progression, right? Like if you want greater adoption, especially from enterprise and institution, I mean, you need to have some of these products that they're familiar with. You know, they understand their risk profiles, they understand how they work. Then all they have to learn is like some of the nuance of dealing with things on chain and whatever, managing their wallets and keys and custody and all that kind of crap. If you're asking them to learn all of that and learn a new product that they have no data and no experience with, it's a bigger lift, more friction. So I think products like this are interesting at the very least. I don't think we're going to see a whole bunch of people buying treasuries on chain unless they were.
But it's good to have the option, right?
Yeah, unless they were already on chain. But what I'm most excited about here is I think this creates a new primitive from which you can build other really interesting financial products, and with some baked in real yield instead of the superficial yield that we all talk about. So
that was all really good news. Do you want to have some FUD on Go FUD Yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a Wednesday without some FUD.
People are mad at CZ.
CZ.
People are so mad at him. There's just like so much FUD. I guess it kind of stems from the SEC. It probably also stems from him thumbing his nose and being a little bit arrogant lately. So yeah, I don't know. The current news is that potentially they sold a lot of Bitcoin to boost BNB. He denies it. It's interesting because you'd think in blockchain there would be a way to tell, but actually there is no way to verify exactly who did what and who sold what and why and what the context of it all is. So he's denying it. I don't know. What do you think? Did he do it? Does it matter?
I don't know if he did it. I think he obviously has a lot of reasons to try to support the value of BNB. His net worth is inextricably connected to the value of BNB. I also think that it would be very short-sighted, in my opinion, because although we, as the average individual, don't have access to the documentation and or the trading transaction records that would prove this, regulators will at some point in time. And so this would be like the ultimate insider trading, ultimate market manipulation. Like this would just add gas to the already existing fire that's burning between them and regulators. What is the old saying? Something about idle hands are the devil's what? Idle hands. Anyways, that's what this makes me think of, like the insider trading about people shorting BNB, and then now this. It's just like.
So I don't know if Ocean Block or Nikki are familiar, but we have major tin hats on all the time, and this is even too tin hatty for me. This is like such a made up conspiracy. I don't know. Like, is it a slow news day? Not really. Are they fishing for news that isn't the SEC? Probably, because that's what we're doing too. But to just sort of like have this conjecture and present it as news is a very strange.
Well, anytime I see a claim like this, like a headline that you can neither confirm nor negate, I always think that's why they pick up momentum, because you can't prove it wrong. So it just becomes pure speculation. You can't prove it right and you can't prove it wrong. So it just gets people talking about it. To me, it seems a little clickbaity. Could it be true? Sure. If it was true, I'd be really surprised, because I think that would be like, even if you're thumbing the nose, even if you think, if you're CZ, you're thinking F the SEC, et cetera, it's a pretty risky, short-sighted approach, in my opinion. So
there is. Okay, before we move into our next one, do you want to talk about interest rates?
Did we get the numbers yet?
There isn't a number. There's just speculation that they're going to be held.
Yeah. So
not hiked.
It's at 2 p.m. East.
This is American, just for the record. I don't know where.
American Fed rates. Yeah. The Fed overnight rate, essentially, which influences everything else in the marketplace. I think they're going to pause this month. I think that's what the market's accepting. Or expecting. We're kind of seeing that. Generally speaking, if the market's expecting an increase in rates, we'll see a bit of a dump in the markets. I think there's a lot of people with their finger on the sell button, but no one really knows what to do right now. So we'll see. 2 p.m. is when they come out. Occasionally they come out slightly before 2 p.m. But yeah, we'll see at 2 p.m. I think if we get a pause, we're going to see probably a small rally. I wouldn't get too excited, nor would I try to trade it, because I think it's going to be pretty short-lived.
Not financial advice.
Definitely not financial advice.
Lots of people counter trade JD.
That's probably a smart strategy. Whatever I say, do the opposite. You're probably better off. But yeah, I think to sum up, I mean, it's super risky. I think there's so much speculation. They talked today about unemployment rate is down in the mid 3s, which is like insanely low. The average unemployment rate in the US is 5-point-something% since like 1933 or some nonsense. And all of a sudden we're at like 3.4, I think it is. Why is that important?
We love the 30s this week. This is the anniversary of the SEC starting in 1934. It's the anniversary of the bill that made the SEC start. I can't remember what it's called right now, in 1933. Our favorite GG talked about it this week. It's a really exciting week for the 30s to have a comeback for us.
Yeah, and maybe we'll have another recession like the 30s. I don't know.
You ready to live in a dust bowl?
I'd prefer not to be honest. But anyways, it's interesting because more people than in modern recorded history in the US are electing to not participate in the labor force, which makes these unemployment numbers kind of deceiving.
Absolutely.
And so the way that the unemployment numbers work, for anybody that cares.
I'm not sure if this is what Rogelio tuned in for, so bear with us. We will get to the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, he's a responsible father. He probably understands. That's what his Twitter, his or her, I guess, Twitter says. Anyways, so the way that the unemployment rates work in the US, just when you're looking at these numbers to have some critical thought on it, is it's how many people want a job, are currently and actively seeking a job, but don't have one. And that's generally reported via employment insurance. Mm-hmm. So people that are on unemployment or getting social supports for being unemployed. When you stop looking, or if you fall off employment insurance, then you're just not counted, generally speaking, which is insane to me. Yeah, it's a very misleading number. 3.4% unemployment, right? But there's 10% that are just choosing not to work that are under 40. Like, that's insane. And that's obviously perpetuated by social programs and all the free handouts. The fact that 50% of the US public doesn't pay any income tax federally, all of these things.
There's also the other elements of like EI runs out. So you could still be actively looking for a job, and maybe you were impacted by, I don't know, the wild Google layoffs or something, and your EI ran out and now you're just not counted, even though you're actively looking and posting all the time. Like there's there's quite a few different sides.
COVID.
Yeah.
Maybe you got long COVID. Anyways, we can move on from that.
All right. So,
but yeah, we'll see what happens with we'll see what happens with the Fed rate. I'm hoping it stays. I hope they pause, because that would be a good signal that maybe we're not going to see any more increases. Okay.
Everyone's favorite Ava Labs CEO testified yesterday at the Future of Digital Assets, providing clarity for the digital asset ecosystem Financial Services Committee hearing. And prior to that, Eamon posted all of what he was going to say. He posted all his comments and stuff, so people were able to review them in advance. But you can go watch the live stream. We have a link to it. It's going up on Twitter. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting because it's nothing that we haven't heard of.
Yeah.
I think it's important, though, that it's happening, right?
Well, it's important. He's also an active tenured professor at Cornell. So Ivy League school in the US, the Senate and generally policymakers take academics quite seriously. So this, I think what he says and the way he's able to explain it, because he's used to instructing people that don't understand something, the way that he's able to explain it, I think, is a little more effective, because it carries a little bit more weight. Plus, his style of presentation or his style of discussion is pretty easy to digest. I think what I took from his testimony or presentation or whatever it was is just that he's really cautioning policymakers about creating unnecessary fear, because there's been a lot of blanket statements that have been made about crypto, especially in the last year, and more specifically about blockchain technology. I think there's still a lot of scammy nonsense in the space, and there's a lot of cryptocurrencies that are in fact useless. Absolutely. But the blockchain technology itself is a meaningful 0 to 1 innovation for society. And I think that's what he was trying to remind them of, that this isn't just some quick financial scheme. There happens to be a bunch of financial schemes attached to this, and we do need to talk about that. But let's not undermine the technology itself. I think that's kind of what I took from his presentation. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was interesting in the context of our show that he's using the term fear and misunderstanding and not like throwing crypto jargon in. He didn't say FUD, right? Yeah, I don't have any wild, outlandish thoughts about this. I'm glad that these conversations are happening. I'm glad that they're pulling people who are both respected in a traditional world and respected in the blockchain world. It's hard to be in both. And so always a good job on him, lots of back hats. And if anyone's going to go represent us, at least Ava Labs has a good understanding of the degen side. That being, they have moved into a lot of institutional clients. And while I'm not saying that institutional clients are bad or anything like that, it is a little bit counterintuitive to the intention of financial revolution in the space. So I also wonder if by having only the big heads at hearings like this and giving their opinions, if it kind of undermines the retail user in some ways. But,
I mean, I would love to see more small participants, but I just think, it's a function of time, right? Like they only have a certain amount of time. These hearings are, every person on the committee gets to ask a whole bunch of questions and reclaim their time. But yeah, I think Gun is a good representative of both sides of the argument. He's spent a great deal of time with TradFi participants, with academia, and then of course in the blockchain space directly. He's not the only person, obviously, that has that skill set and experience set, but I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah, and to your point about revolutionizing finance, I mean, if we take a step back and look at this objectively, I just don't see a world where we're gonna go from A to B entirely. And so there's going to have to be some progressive stepwise change, and hopefully this helps support that.
I know it's not really a revolution anymore.
We need to get to this one because I'm excited about it.
SEC. JD, you've got 6 SEC minutes, which is, never mind.
A long time. I usually need 35, 40 seconds to get a thought out.
That's where I was going with that.
House Republicans urge the SEC to halt expansion of the exchange definition. I think this is really important. They're trying to expand the definition of exchange to include crypto securities, which effectively makes all crypto transactions as we see them unavailable to Americans. If that's the case,
we've been talking about this all week.
I know, but
is it different now?
Just wait. It's different in the sense that they're trying to ratify this right now.
Okay.
But Republicans, and I think an impressive amount of Democrats are saying, and we talked about this earlier in the week. I think there's such a high proportion of the voting base that's participating in crypto. Someone sent a note from my account. We have a comment from me, but I didn't send it. That's strange.
No, I did on Twitch. It's okay.
Oh, okay. Everything's okay. I was having a panic. Now I lost my train of thought. So I mean, if this happens, then it means that Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini, all of these platforms that allow swaps have been effectively unregistered national securities exchanges. The implications of that are ridiculous and enough probably to crush the space in the US. So the implications of that, as I talked about before, are twofold. One, immediately we all have no access, if you live in the US, to trade anything on a DEX or on a centralized exchange, other than maybe Bitcoin and currently ETH. Everything else more or less has been blanket included as a security, at least according to Gensler. But the more alarming thing, that's more problematic than that, because even if that was the case, there would be a path for some exchanges to get national securities exchange licensing or something. In the interim, there would be a kind of a bridge and a bit of a stopgap. The bigger problem is if you are selling securities, but as an unregistered exchange, you have to, every single person that ever bought an asset, one of those assets, can ask for a refund and has the legal right to do so. That would crush Coinbase entirely. That would, if they were able to get this through, and if somebody was able to litigate, Uniswap would be the next obvious large target. They would say that Uniswap was acting as an unregistered securities exchange for all this time. And anybody that bought anything on Uniswap, imagine all the people that have been shitcoining for the last few years and all of a sudden are going to want refunds on all the dumb investments they made. Like, that sounds exciting to people that want refunds, but it's not, because you're entitled to a refund, but you're not going to get it because all these companies are just going to run out of money. That's it. And so
it also just kind of kills the space, honestly.
Yeah. And so
if you get a refund from your store until it closes, then you don't have that store anymore.
Yeah, like, it would be insanely short-sighted, in my opinion. Anyways, the Blockchain Association agrees with us on this one, clearly, and they're saying, hey, wait a second, like, we need some public feedback on this. Like, this isn't going to work. I don't think there's a single person in your voting base at all, Democrat or Republican, that thinks this is a smart idea if you understand what it's saying. Do I think that we need to protect consumers in the United States? Absolutely. Do I think regulation is coming? Absolutely. But should we do it in a thoughtful way that doesn't completely crush the industry that we're trying to foster? Yeah, I think we should do it in a thoughtful way. And this, to me, is knee jerk, which is ridiculous. Anyways. There's more interesting stuff going on with respect to the lawsuits and some of the framework discussions. And we talked about the Luminous Gullibrand bill. I've talked about the McHenry et al. Bill that's coming. Another lawmaker was talking about all of these lawsuits. How did they phrase it?
All of these lawsuits being, Ripple, Coinbase.
No. But they, anyways, what he said, that all of these lawsuits highlight the need for clear frameworks and that we currently don't have it. And so just by trying to enforce this stuff, there's a lot of arguments on both sides of the equation. And I don't think we're going to come to any consensus without some sort of like meaningful policy and framework. And so more and more lawmakers are coming out and saying this, are of this opinion. I think a silver lining possibly to what we've been seeing and experiencing lately is that whether we like it or not, we're probably going to see some version of regulatory frameworks sooner now, because the SEC's on a tear. Policymakers are aware that their constituents are unimpressed by this. And we're really, and I said this on Twitter the other day, we're pretty close to that point of no return, where like pretty soon, if the US doesn't figure it out and we offshore a few more major companies, including Coinbase, who's been talking about offshoring, if that happens, like good luck trying to get it back. If they change the rules, I said this yesterday, if I move out of the US and they change the rules, I'm not moving back, like period. And I mean, we're not necessarily the largest participant in the space, but we added.
No, but if that's tenfold and hundredfold and thousandfold.
Well, and we added a good amount. Even us, we add a good amount to the tax base here in the US. You know, multiple seven figures a year on a few fronts. So, I mean, that's a lot of taxes that they probably don't want to lose. So anyways,
all right,
they better figure this the hell out and get some solutions here soon. We say it every day. So today, FU SEC, FU SBF.
Tomorrow, we're going to do crypto arms race. We're going to talk about anything but America, please. And then on Friday, we have to say FU to somebody. And it seems like it's going to be the SEC. But if you can find someone else to say FU to, please let us know, because maybe there's a bigger player out there that we need to give the figures in.
Yeah, we can FU to everybody. Anyways, live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Like, subscribe, share. Bookmark if you're on Twitter, please, Twitter Spaces. If you can bookmark the replay, that would be super handy. Doesn't actually harm you in any way. It just adds it to your bookmark list. But it really significantly increases our reach. We are on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Where else? Pretty much.
Too many places. For a while, I was putting us up on Rumble, everywhere.
We were on Instagram for a minute. Yeah. So anyways, we're all over the place. Share the love. Help us share the love. Again, we don't do any advertising or any of that shit. All we take is merch for shout outs. If you're watching the video, you can see almost every day I'm wearing merch.
Give me some lady merch.
Lady merch?
Everything I have is like a boxy dude t-shirt. I don't want to wear it.
We need lady merch. That's the key. If you take anything from today's call, lady merch in the space. With that, I say to you, Kiara, go find yourself.